Welcome into another episode of Red Zone Talk, episode 22. He's Tim Hunt. I'm Owen Burke, recording much later than we would usually like to, but the universe just didn't want Red Zone Talk to happen this week. But gosh darn it, we will not be denied. So if you're listening to the episode late, hopefully you're still able to listen before the playoff games happen this weekend. But
are they all on Sunday? Or are they on?
They are.
Okay, yeah.
Just so both of them are tomorrow.
Okay, it should come out this evening on Saturday, so that shouldn't be too big of a deal.
Hopefully some of you guys got a chance to listen and maybe get some bets in before we got to the championship game starting at 2 p.m. tomorrow. But if not, you get to listen to some trivia, talk about us, listen to some head coaches and things, and that's what we're going to do today. So,
yeah. If you don't like listening to sick people, by the way, I'm slightly under the weather at the moment, so that's just a forewarning a minute in. So like, it's not going to get better as this show goes on. So just give up. Quit while you're ahead.
Yeah, if the congestion bothers you, you might just have to wait until next week. Truthfully, but some scheduling conflicts with me trying to get into this office, Tim getting sick. I did a radio show the last 3 days of the week. So it's a Saturday, a day before the games happen, but we're here to talk football, and that's what we plan to do. So,
all right,
want to get us started off?
You ready for some trivia here?
I was born ready for some trivia.
All right, I'm going to ask you. This is a tough one. I'm going to preface that, but I'm going to create some leniencies before you overreact here. I have the teams who have scored the 10 most touchdowns for an entire season. Okay. Rushing, throwing, all of it combined here. Now it's actually longer than 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then, it's like 13 long is the way I'm going to describe it. Cause there's a bunch of teams tied at 66 touchdowns for the whole season. So when I ask for these teams, I'm going to give you a plus or minus a year. Okay. So let's say, for some reason you wanted to guess like the 08 Lions, right? And you said the 07 Lions, like I'll give you the 07 Lions, the 08 Lions, or the 06 Lions. That'll be one guess I'll take. I'll also take the three main players on a team. So like if you wanted to guess that Lions team, you could have said Dan Orlovsky, Calvin Johnson, and I don't know if Reggie Bush was on that team, but he might have been Reggie Bush, for example. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
I will also I'll take any of those as a format to try to make it slightly more manageable.
Okay.
And the other scenario I'm going to give you here, which I only think it comes up. Oh, it doesn't come up at all, actually. Yeah, there's one way it could come up, I guess. Oh, no, there's not. Just kidding. I was about to say, if you guess a team where multiple answers are correct, I'd give you multiple answers, but that isn't possible with the top 10.
Okay.
So,
it's all right. A good one.
Yeah, and I'm going to give you 3 strikes here, 2 hints. So,
the first team that came to my mind, and I might fudge the year, I want to say it was the 2013 Denver Broncos when they had Peyton, Julius Thomas, the year that he threw 55 touchdowns.
Yeah. So you only have to give me one or the other. You don't have to give me both when leading. But if you want to preface it, that's fine.
I think that is 2013.
That is the number one answer is the 2013 Denver Broncos. Okay. 76 touchdowns that year.
I remember they were getting up and down the field nonstop. When your quarterback throws 55 touchdowns, it's kind of hard for you not to make this list.
I think he threw more than that.
I thought it was 55 on the dot. I could be wrong. I'm trying to remember what year Brady would have thrown 50 because I know that was the record he broke. Honestly, that might not be a bad way of thinking of this. It's just trying to pluck through the top 10 passing touchdown leaders of all time.
It's honestly not going to be a terrible way.
Just hope that they were able to get, 15 touchdowns elsewhere on the way in.
Yeah, Manning threw 55 that year. You're right.
And what year did Brady throw 50? I don't think it was that far beforehand. Did Brady throw 50?
He threw 50 exactly. So
I feel like I know those two pretty well. Did Brady throw 50 the year that Moss was there? So what, that would have been 06?
06 Patriots. Are you locking that in?
Yeah, Moss, Welker, and Brady, like those three, maybe.
Yeah, Moss, Welker, Brady. It would have been the '07 Patriots,
Oh,
but
seven. Okay.
'06 works for that. That's number two. They had one less touchdown than that
Wow.
Broncos team at 75 touchdowns.
I wanted to say '07, but I was like, well, I thought they won in '07, and I didn't think Moss was on a championship team with you guys.
They did not. They didn't win. That was in their 10-year stretch where they didn't win a Super Bowl.
Which is insane to say out loud that year that team went a 10-year stretch that won in a Super Bowl.
I mean, that team went 18-1, and they lost in the Super Bowl. So
Yeah. I think I saw the other day Wes Welker doesn't have a Super Bowl ring.
nope, Wes Welker doesn't. And everyone forgets Rob Gronkowski has 2 Super Bowl losses. Rob was on both those teams, I want to say. Or maybe he was only on one of them, but yeah.
That's insane that like I saw that and I was like, there is zero chance that Wes Welker doesn't have a ring, right? All the years in New England, plus
And
finishes
then
his year in Denver with Peyton and just misses out on all of them. That's fucking nuts.
Very close.
Okay. Well, now I'm screwed. Those are the two easy answers, unfortunately. Yeah.
There's definitely still some easy ones out there, I'll say.
Can I get any type of year parameters? Like, or do we have like any 80s, 90s?
Yeah, I mean, I'll help you there.
Just give me a couple, like what decade we're looking at in a couple.
So we have one team in the 60s, and that would be a team I would stay away from. I
probably will.
2 teams in the 90s, and then every other team is in the 2000s. So it's all basically a majority of this list is post 2000.
I'm really thinking. I was really thinking that a Dan Marino's Dolphins team would have peeked into here.
Yeah,
he was drafted in '84, right?
Yeah, he was drafted. Yeah, '84. Yeah, I want to say that's right.
There's not a Dan Marino Dolphins team here.
I'm checking that now. There is not.
Okay, cool.
And there is earlier when I said the rule I said earlier can actually happen. I just caught the other team that I knew I wrote that rule down for a reason. There is a team here that you could say a year and get both of the answers.
So there's a team that was back-to-back, was in
back-to-back or within 2 years. But yes, there is a back-to-back team on this list that makes this list twice.
And it's not New England or Denver.
It is not New England or Denver. Now, that doesn't mean that those teams aren't on here multiple times. But yeah, it does. Okay. It's not New England or Denver. So you're forgetting. I like the back-to-back team should be very easy to get. To be honest with you, very very easy to get.
Is it recent? Very recent.
Not very recent. Not recent, really.
But in the 2000s, past 2000.
It's so hard to define that.
Oh, duh. Well, I think that might have just given it away. I assume you're probably talking like the 99 and 2000 greatest show on turf with the St. Louis Rams.
Yeah, the St. Louis Rams are here twice. Oh, and the Dolphins are on this list. Sorry, I'm having a hard time reading this list. Dolphins are on here.
Is it like a Dan Marino Dolphins team?
Yeah, it is Dan Marino Dolphins team.
Hello. I thought he would have been up there throwing 5,000 back in the
day. It is the 99 Rams scored 66 touchdowns, putting them in the bottom tier of this, and then the 2000 Rams scored 67 touchdowns. So there's 4 right for you.
Okay. Now, to try to take a stab at this Miami team,
I don't know if that's your best strategy, to be 100% honest with you. I mean, that's such a wide range. Even the teams in the 90s were definitely great teams. Well, I guess you only have one team left in the 90s. It was definitely a great team, but I don't know if that's who I would chase after.
Is the team in the 90s the Dolphins team? Because if so, I'll probably just pivot away from it. It's not.
No, they're in the 80s. Okay. I don't know how I missed them. Yeah, you have an 80s team, a 90s team, and a 60s teams left. Everybody else is post 2000.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I couldn't tell you a single other player that played on that Dan Marino team that would have done it. I would assume that it's probably close to the year he threw 5,000 yards back in the day. The 90s team, it really makes me think, well, there's 2 dynasties that come to mind. The question is, which one is it and what year is it going to be?
Yeah, that's why I would stay away from those. I would think more recent, think MVPs for quarterbacks, maybe like peak of, all-time great quarterbacks. There's several of those seasons on here. I don't know if I'm yelling right now. I might be yelling.
Maybe a little bit. But That's fine. We could both
It's
yell.
it's maybe because I can't hear my own voice, which is slightly strange for me, but I caught a glimpse of it there. But yeah, I think all time quarterbacks in their great season.
Okay, how many strikes am I getting here? Just out of
You get
curiosity.
3 strikes, so
Still
yeah,
get
you could
3.
swing away.
Okay. Man, can I think of a third player that would belong on the teams? I do want to take a stab at that '90s team, but I might double back around. I'm assuming that there's got to be an Aaron Rodgers Green Bay Packers team on here, but what effing year would that have been? I'm gonna guess. Well, he wouldn't have been MVP back then. That was just when they won the Super Bowl. Are there?
What year are you thinking? Just
Well,
so the listeners at home can
I
scream and
want to
yell at you.
say. I want to say it was 2010 that they won the Super Bowl, if I remember right. It would have been 2 years before Baltimore and they beat Pittsburgh, but that wasn't. He wasn't an MVP
Yeah.
guy from what I can remember back then. But he also did win 3 MVPs here in the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, that sways things. So
That which puts me up towards that time frame. I'm gonna guess probably the Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, and God, who would have been the third guy on that team? James Jones still hanging around. Randall Cobb, probably. Randall Cobb. That's who my third guy will be.
all right, hang on. Now you got to make me see. This is a team that I didn't have that ready.
Gotta make you dig for it. I would guess it's probably what the 2018 Packers.
I mean, are you guessing those 3 guys? Or are you guessing the 2018 Packers here?
Well, I'll take whichever answer is correct. That's what I
want. So wait, who did you say? You said
Cobb, Adams, and Rodgers.
Okay, hang on. Sorry, where is just the final roster? Holy cow!
I love when they make it difficult. That's
yeah,
my favorite part of it.
Both those answers are wrong.
Damn.
I'll give if you want to use your hint. I'll tell you that I'll give you an idea, but
yeah, go ahead and give it to me.
Yeah, so you're close. You're very. What was the year you guessed?
I guess 2018.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, you're very very close. You're 1 year off the parameters of getting it correct. So,
okay.
And that's that plus or minus 1. So you have to go back a year or forward a year, but you're very close. Randall Cobb was not on that team.
So I would assume that it's. I'm gonna jump it. I'm gonna say the 2020 Packers then.
Yes, yeah. Okay. 2020 Packers is exactly right. So that puts you at 5 correct and then 1 wrong here. 1 strike, if you will, but yeah, 5 correct there.
I really wish I didn't burn a strike there because I really wanted to burn a strike on the team in the 90s.
Yeah, you were close. It would have been Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, and Devontae Adams would have been fine. But
I don't know why I didn't go for the running back first.
Yeah, the running back probably would have been a safer bet than Alan Lazard, or Randall Cobb, but still, yeah. Alan Lazard would have been on that team too. That's the only reason I said that out loud. But
Patriots are promoting DeMarcus Covington to their defensive coordinator.
I just saw that. Yeah,
very nice. All right. There's got to be a Patrick Mahomes-led team on here.
Yeah, I mean, there is one Patrick Mahomes team on here. So, I mean, that gives you a 5-year window, a 6-year window?
6-year window, yeah. Man, I know it wouldn't have been this year, down year. Wouldn't have been 2023 because that was also a down year. I want to say it might line up in the same year. Give me 20. I'll hedge a little bit. Give me 2021 Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes.
2021 Patrick Mahomes Chiefs will not
be
correct. That is
a year off again.
Are you going to use your second hint on that?
Sure.
You said 2021.
Mm-hmm.
You are more than a year off on your parameter, so you're off there. So I mean, there's only one direction to go. So you're outside of you're more than a year outside that parameter. So if you guys 2021, you would have gotten 2022, 2021, 2020. You're outside of those 3 years by more than a year.
So it's a 2019 Chiefs is where my head
2019 Chiefs will be a correct answer. It's actually the 2018 Chiefs. It was his
Oh,
First year as a starter,
damn.
71 touchdowns. It's the third all-time most touchdowns by a team.
Jesus.
Yeah, that one was a little bit hard. I was like, man, that's his first year, I think, starting.
He's made
So
6 fucking AFC title games in a row. It's hard to. They all start to blend together after a while. I
yeah,
just remember this year, obviously, the Chiefs' offensive issues. Last year, he had the pick problem early on in the year. So I knew it wasn't going to be super recent, but I was assuming that it wasn't the first goddamn year you got there.
yeah. So that puts you at what, 5 correct? And 2 strikes?
1, 2, 3,
6?
4, 5.
5 correct and 1
I
strike.
think so. Unless I forgot to write one down. Because I also
Yeah.
thought you said 5 correct before, but I don't know.
Yeah, I know you got the Broncos, the Patriots, you got one of the Packers year, you got the Chiefs year, and then you got 2 St. Louis years. You got 6.
Oh, yeah, because I forgot. I just have St. Louis written down once. That's why.
Yeah, 2 years of that, so 6.
Okay.
2 strikes. You're out of hints at this point, so you're kind of shooting from the hip there, Cowboy.
I have 2 strikes.
And you have 2 strikes. So
the question is, can I name a third player from? I'm gonna take the stab, and if I die on this sword, that's okay. And I'm gonna take a stab at the '90s team.
Okay.
And it's gonna be one of the 2 dynasties, and I'm probably gonna guess wrong, but I couldn't tell you a third player for the other. I'm gonna go with a Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, and Emmitt Smith Cowboys team.
That's gonna be wrong.
Damn it! Is there a Niners team on there?
It's a Niners team.
Ah, fucking hell.
That's why I told you to stay away from it.
Yeah, would have been Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, and was it Harrison Gurst there? I don't.
Yeah, Harrison Gurst. I would have had to look that one up too. But
is that even the right running back that I'm thinking of?
I don't know.
What year was that? Just out of curiosity, I want to look it up.
It was the 1994 San Francisco 49ers. So kind of late in their dynasty, I thought. So it actually probably would have been Steve Young. You probably would have been wrong with Joe Montana. Probably would have been Steve
No, you're
Young.
right. I would have been. I would have been wrong.
I was thinking about it. I was like, yeah, that's Steve Young era, no longer Joe Montana. So
yeah, and I couldn't have told you running back on that roster. I would have had to just get like Ed McCaffrey or just like Steve Young, Jerry Rice, and just like name a defensive player.
Yeah. So
you're like Deion Sanders.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Deion Sanders.
I mean, hey, he's probably getting some return touchdowns back then.
He probably would have counted. So we had Denver at 1, New England at 2, Kansas City at 3. Green Bay was number 4 with the 2011 season. And I was I thought you were going to go for that Packers season.
I should have guessed it.
Dan Marino was the 80s. He wasn't drafted in 84. 84 was the year of the 5,000-yard season.
That's what I knew that. I was like, 84 sticks in my head, but I feel like I felt like that. I got twisted up.
So that season would have been the 5th season. The 2012 Patriots also make this list. And then we have the 2000 Rams, the 2020 Packers. The 2011 New Orleans Saints were on this list. I was trying to push you along of all-time great quarterbacks and all-time great seasons.
Yeah, I just refused to take that.
Yeah, and then you have the 2004 Colts, the MVP year for Peyton. Mr. Manning on there. The 99 Rams, the 94 49ers, the 61 Oilers were the last team to make this list.
Was that Earl Campbell? Who the hell was scoring touchdowns back then?
Yeah, I don't know. I can look it up real quick. But yeah, that was one I was like, man, I hope he doesn't go for this one because I have no clue.
I mean, well, honestly, anybody who's like, yeah, let me guess the 60s team first is obviously just an idiot.
Well, George Blanda was the quarterback, of course. And then
Mike Ditka was their first-round pick that year, apparently.
Billy Cannon was their halfback. Yeah, so.
George Blanda, huh?
Why is there
George Blanda was just like that. Funny, Wikipedia shows Billy Cannon as a tight end.
Yeah, why does it show me as... It shows Billy Cannon. As Pro Football Reference has him as
a running back.
Yeah,
I trust them more than I do Wikipedia. I just thought that was funny that it was that far off. It's not like he was fullback and running back.
Oh, okay. Charlie Hennigan was the... I don't know what the FL stands for. I'm not sure what they're trying to say the FL means, but I'm guessing that was wide receiver in the 60s, but because he had 82 catches for 1,700 yards and 12 TDs. So,
well, yeah, I looked at that 94 Niners team, and again, I'm looking at Wikipedia, not Pro Football Focus, but They only had 4 receivers on the roster apparently, and I'm like, can you imagine that today's
Yeah.
league?
No,
You
it's
need
not
6 or
possible.
7.
Yeah.
You run 4 on 20 straight plays. Like,
Could you imagine how mad all the Madden players would be if there wasn't some guy
you,
who was a 71 overall with 97 speed that never actually plays in the game, but is just a
yep,
Madden legend?
that's Jalen Hyatt sitting on my bench right now. It's like a
Quez
73 overall.
Quez Watkins for like the last 3 years just wouldn't be a thing. Like
My
people
goat.
people would like lose their mind. Because yeah, most teams carry 6 or 7 wide receivers at this
I
point.
think I'm usually a 6 guy. I'm
And
6.
now most teams have offensive linemen who flex. So you don't have like a backup tackle and a backup guard and a backup. Like it's just a guy who can play. You typically have 2 guys who can either play guard or center, and then a guy who can play like tackle guard,
That's how
kind of
I am
fill
on
in.
Madden too. I think I hold 2, maybe 3 offensive linemen if I just have somebody
I was
that
talking
they're
real
actually
life.
good.
I wasn't talking about
I'm a
Madden
Madden guy.
necessarily, but I was talking about what teams actually do. But that's why you see teams flip around the lines a lot. But not a bad stretch for you. Would you get 6 right? Was it the
1,
final?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, 6.
So that puts you up to 510 to my 450. So you're up 60 there.
Hey, get ready for another all-time tackler list next week.
Yeah, I know. See, like you think you hear that list and it's like, okay, I said I'd take the top 3 players from the team. I'd take like plus or minus the year. I wasn't going to make you nail years. That felt a little unfair.
Which I
And then,
appreciate that. I
and then
would have
you
been
run
dead
through
in the
the list
water.
and you're like, oh, that's all gettable. Especially when you have 2 that are like free of like, oh, the greatest show on turf did it 2 years back to back.
I didn't even think about that.
Like one of the best offenses of all time. And think about that list. You could have gone Marshall Faulk, Kurt Warner, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Hall.
Torrey
Like
Holt, I could have named 4 on that
you
one.
could have
Yeah.
named 4 on that team pretty easily. So
Well, if you hadn't said, well, it's kind of difficult, like because they're
yeah,
in the, I was like,
right on the
that's
line.
what was just the dead ringer of a giveaway for it.
I should have just gone. They lost a Super Bowl to the Patriots and let you just let you squirm there.
Atlanta Falcons.
Atlanta Falcons. All right. Speaking of the Atlanta Falcons, let's jump into some of the reactions of the hirings. We're not going to necessarily rank the hirings or grade the hirings yet. I want to do that once every team has hired their head coach.
Mm-hmm.
We have 2 openings. We have Seattle and Washington left.
Yep.
It's rumored that Washington's just basically waiting for the Lions to lose. And once the Lions lose, they're going to name Ben Johnson as their head coach. Everything I heard and read, that's their plan.
Good.
Doesn't seem like anyone else has got a real chance at that one. And then Seattle, I know Dan Quinn had his second interview there. I don't think that's decided at all. That one seems a little bit open at the moment.
Yeah, I'm worried because I think they're going to try to interview Mike McDonald too, and I don't want it. I need Mike McDonald to stay in Baltimore so badly.
I mean, and the reason I wanted to talk about this kind of at the get-go was it's funny that we say this because we named a bunch of names early on, right? Once we got started here. Like we said, Eric Bieniemy was going to get a job. We named all these guys that we thought: Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll, Mike Vrabel,
The best head coaching class we've ever seen in our lives.
and probably the top 4 guys from that class. Probably the top 3 guys aren't going to get a job. 3 out of the top 4 guys aren't going to get a job, right? Like
Yeah.
Ben Johnson, we knew was going to get a head coaching job this cycle, and he still hasn't officially locked one up, but it's seems like it's all but done.
Unofficially official.
Unofficially official, as much as they can make it without, since the Lions are still playing.
Mhm.
Like if the Lions lose on Sunday, don't be shocked if Monday they're like, Ben Johnson's the head coach. Congratulations. Like we just have been kind of waiting to announce it. Like it's wild to me that like, and the thing that I've heard and the reason there's so much pushback on those 3 guys in particular has been really interesting to me, at least, is it's all because they want control, right? Mike Vrabel left Tennessee over disputes with the GM. Belichick ran everything in New England for the last 20 years, right? So if you're a GM, at Pete Carroll had a lot of say in Seattle, right? Had picked a lot of the groceries over there. So if you're a GM and you're hiring a head coach, those are 3 guys you're not going to want to bring in, right? Like you're basically hiring a guy who's going to diminish your role in an organization.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a pride thing. And it's really interesting to me because if I was a GM, I think I would diminish my pride to win games, right? Like Like that's to me, I'd be like, listen, I'd rather not have all the say in the world and win a Super Bowl than have all the say in the world and continue to be a 7-8 team.
I agree.
So
And
go
I
ahead.
think Belichick is a little bit more on that, like more intense of a situation there than, Vrabel or Pete Carroll is. Obviously, just he has the pedigree for it, right? Whereas when it comes down to that 50-50 decision, if it's Bill Belichick telling you that versus Mike Vrabel, the weight carries there a little bit more, right? It's Bill fucking Belichick, all right? Are you going to fucking tell that
But
guy no?
even in Vrabel's defense, right? Vrabel wanted to pay AJ Brown, wanted to keep AJ Brown in Tennessee. And if you look like that, a lot of people have, it's rumored that that's what broke them up was that decision. And you look what AJ Brown's gone on to do with the Philadelphia Eagles versus what they got in return for that is ludicrous, right? Like AJ Brown is at the level of Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill's return was absolutely massive, and they basically got a first round pick for AJ Brown. Like as that might be one of the worst trades that we've seen. That's up there with the DeAndre Hopkins trade in my mind. Of just return value in which they got because I mean Houston got like a second in David Johnson, which was like just basically nothing.
That was nothing because David
Yeah,
Johnson fell off the face of the earth after it happened.
he wasn't even good the last year in Arizona, I'm pretty sure. But I mean, to give up AJ Brown for that little was just disappointing. Like, so I don't blame Mike Vrabel where he's like, listen, I'm trying to put a team together and look at the pieces that I've got, right? Derrick Henry, as great as he is, he's getting old, right? And he's going to be a contributor for his next team more than likely, but he's not going to be the focal point that he was. Vrabel was able to take a B team, right? Tannehill. Was AJ Brown on that AFC Championship team? I think he was still at
I
that
think
point,
so.
right?
I
Yeah.
think he might have
AJ,
been in his first couple of years, but
yeah. So he took Tannehill, Derrick Henry, AJ Brown to an AFC Championship game, right? And
with who the hell is on defense?
yeah,
I couldn't fucking tell you. They
Kevin
literally took my team
Byron,
out.
Jeffrey Simmons, I want to say was on
Yeah,
that
Jeffrey
team.
Simmons, Kevin Byard was
Or
probably still there. Like they had some guys. I won't say that they were a
I want to say
talentless
they
squad, but
had
like
I think they had Malcolm Butler might have been on that team for
yeah,
them. I
maybe
could be
probably
wrong,
getting
but
exposed a lot of the times.
yeah, not a good year for him. He didn't last
No,
long in Tennessee.
no, he didn't.
Um, but yeah, point being is that team overachieved, and so for him, I don't blame him saying, "Listen, this is I want some say, I want some input here because this is like imagine you go to an Atlanta and they trade away all your pieces. It's like, what's the point?
It's more so like I've been burned by this once. I don't want to get burned again. I don't think he is sitting here like I want to be the GM. I want to be in control of this. He's saying like, listen, at the end of the day, I have to coach what you put on the field. I need to know that I'm not going to get burned by this again. We traded
Yeah,
AJ Brown for Traylon Burks in a fourth round pick that I couldn't even tell you who we drafted with. And for what, right? And we have done nothing to improve the offensive line. I couldn't name you a draft pick that has came in and
been impactful.
immediately been impactful, seriously impactful in Tennessee in the
Yeah,
last 4 years. So I can understand Vrabel's point of view there. And Belichick, honestly, like I am a little surprised. Like, I was hoping that he was gonna have the mind of I'm here to win games. Like, because there's not much work that needed to be done. Like, Atlanta was the main spot. So, like, I want to talk about him to Atlanta. There's not a ton of work that needed done to that roster. Pick your
yeah,
quarterback, fix up the O line a bit, grabs yourself some filler former New England Patriots to fill in your defense, bring Jamie Collins in and call it a day, right?
yeah. Good to go.
There's not much to do there. So I don't understand why that part became such an issue for him.
It is interesting that didn't end up coming together. I'm surprised, and I'm not saying Atlanta can't be successful, but if they have any kind of shortcoming next season, there's going to be the big cloud of well, what if you just went out and got uh, Belichick,
And I
right?
think I heard some
Would you be a
reports.
playoff team, right?
Yeah, I heard some reports that maybe there was some how we were talking about like no way that Jerry Jones and Bill Belichick could work in the same room together. Somewhat of the same thing with Arthur Blank and Bill Belichick in Atlanta as well. So I don't know if there's any validity to that at all,
Mhm.
but
I
that
think
one
he
was
said
honestly.
he said there was hurdles is ultimately why it didn't come together. He didn't
Yeah.
clarify what those hurdles were, but Arthur Blank said there was hurdles. So
That one honestly was probably the most surprising one to me. I thought, they're doing a third interview with this guy. This is all but locked up. And then all of a sudden, boom, Raheem Morris, which has been a very backed head coaching hire. A lot of
yeah.
former Rams defensive players, Jalen Ramsey being the main one, coming out and saying that they got a really great head coach. So I'm curious to really see how it goes. Obviously, they've got to figure out the quarterback situation and things, but I
Yeah.
honestly am not a super. I like the hire. I'm not as
Before we jump into the hires, I do want to touch on one more thing that I found really interesting. Um, I don't know like what to call them. They're not necessarily rumors or reports at the same time. You know what I mean? They're somewhere kind of in the middle here of there's rumblings Andy Reid might retire. Right?
mm,
It is surfacing that, the only thing that's been, reported to say is the Chiefs are aware that Andy Reid might retire. So it's not saying he's thinking about it. It's not saying he's considered it. Like there's nothing from Andy Reid's side. It's all from the Chiefs. The Chiefs are monitoring the situation, is what's being said, which is really interesting, right? Did these guys hold out for a better job, right? Like, are these guys all looking around going, maybe the Chiefs job comes open this year or next year? Maybe the Dallas job comes open. Maybe Buffalo's job comes open. Maybe the Philly job comes open, and we'll wait a year for a better situation. Um, I think those things are definitely on the table. Kansas City's a really interesting one of like what direction they go. Mike Vrabel played in Kansas City, believe it or not. A lot of people forget that.
I forgot that.
Yeah, he went over in the Matt Cashel trade in all things. Yeah, it was.
What a world.
So
What a
he
world.
played in Kansas City. So there's some ties to the organization, but yeah, that's just something I'd keep my eye on. Is that these guys are waiting for maybe the best job.
Now Vrabel, I think, is the exception to the rule. I think that'd be a great hire, and I think that team plays a lot of winning football with him at the helm if that were to happen. Truthfully, I really do believe that one of the best hires they could make would be to bring Eric Bieniemy back and make him the head coach of this team.
That would be
When you
interesting.
when you look at the overall performance of that offense when he was there versus this year, the first year that he's not, there is a glaring difference in the discipline, right? The drops became an issue. It just didn't feel like everything was as neat and tidy as Patrick Mahomes or the team would have wanted it to be. And a lot of people are saying the reason that he was so unliked and didn't get a ton of head coaching looks or, wasn't able to get the hire was because he's very rigid. He expects a lot out of his guys. And like he expects a lot, right? And sometimes when a coach is expecting a lot out of you, getting after you all the time, it's not a fun environment to work in. But hey, guess what that does? Helps you win football games, right? And you could see it this year in the receiver room, especially. There was not a lot of discipline, right? We're having drops that are an issue. There's miscommunication between Patty and his guys. They're not in the spots that they need to be. And a lot of people are saying, yeah, it's because Bieniemy did not take that shit. If you wanted to drop a pass in practice or be 3 yards away from where you needed to be at a certain spot in a drop back or in a play, like you're going to get your ass chewed out. So as much
Yeah.
as players were like, oh, yeah, it was a lot more fun this year because Bieniemy's not chewing our ass out, they probably could have won 12 to 15 games with Bieniemy there, this team. Because let's not look at that Chiefs receiver room and say it wasn't talented. Kadarius Toney was a first-round pick and a guy I still have a lot of faith in, truthfully. Rasheed Rice came along. MVS is solid. There are guys in that receiver room. He's not playing with Sammy Watkins and a 35-year-old Deshaun Jackson like Lamar was 2 years ago. There's talent there. So Bieniemy, I think, is an interesting one to double back on, but it's going to be very hard to like look at Mike Vrabel and be like, nah, we're good.
The enemy will be the hottest offensive coordinator candidate if he doesn't get a head coaching job. I just don't like him and Kellen Moore will be like two very thought over guys. I know Kellen Moore interviewed somewhere already. Can't remember where.
It was for an OC job.
Yeah,
Was it Buffalo or
no, it wasn't Buffalo.
it was another. It was
Was it
another.
Philly?
Maybe.
I don't know. But yeah, Eric Bieniemy will be a hot one, and so will Kellen Moore. I gotta look it up. Did I do it again? No, it is Kellen Moore.
No, you got it. You got it on the money.
Nice. See, I'm just assuming I'm getting it wrong. Yeah, he interviewed with the Eagles. Okay, that's what I thought.
That's a good spot to be at.
Yeah. Oh, and apparently the Browns. He's interviewed with the Browns as well. I didn't realize they fired their OC.
A little bit weirder of a pick for me, but I don't know why you fire your OC after the year they had. But
Yeah.
there were some puzzling moves in that factor as well, right? They were able to navigate losing Nick Chubb and Deshaun Watson, bring in Joe Flacco, win 4-1 down the stretch, make the playoffs, and they're like, fire everybody that's not Stefanski. I'm like, okay, all right, I guess. Well, I didn't think that this was necessary at all, but here we are. Cleveland's going to Cleveland. So, yeah, I mean, if Philly can land Kellen Moore and Adam, they hired Vic Fangio as their DC. I know you had that down to talk about. Like,
Yeah.
Sirianni's getting the super staff back together, but unfortunately, it's going to leave them in the same spot probably 2 years from now, where he's looking for two new coordinators again because both of them are going to get hired out.
I don't think. Yeah, we'll get into that when we talk about it. Let's start talking about the head coach's side.
Bring it.
This is a move I think both of us like. I'm not maybe as optimistic as some people. Antonio Pierce did end up getting the Raiders job. Um, Here's the thing. I think Antonio Pierce has to have. I like the call, and I think there has to be a short leash, right? Like I don't. I think you want to give him 2 or 3 years, see if there's any success, and then you kind of have to really evaluate it from there. I don't
I
think he's
agree.
somebody that I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna keep him for 5 years, trust the process, and see how the outcome is.
It cannot be an extremely short leash. If Antonio Pierce is fired at the end of this year, I think you've made another
No,
mistake. Like,
I think he has to get at least 2 years. I don't think he can do a year. I think that would be a
is
bad
there
look
a
for the Raiders.
scenario where you think it's justified for him to get fired at the end of the year? Like if they're like two and
Yeah,
two and
if
14, 2-15?
see, this is such a hard team to judge is because there's so much talent, but they lack the most important position, and that's quarterback. So,
Yep.
like Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to be there next year,
Nope.
and they're drafting so low. Where are they drafting? They're drafting like eighth, right?
No, because Chicago's 8. I want to say they're 9, maybe
Yeah,
9 or
they're
10.
way too low. They are. Oh God, we're both way off. They're drafting 13th. So I knew they were out of the realm. They're probably going to get a second tier quarterback in this year's draft. Is my guess. Um, a lot of people are calling the second tier quarterbacks either Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy, or Bo Nix. So uh, one of those three guys in the second tier is probably who they end up with. And who knows? They might not draft a guy on the first and hopes one of those guys falls to the second and then moves up and snags one of those guys in the second. But
Yeah, because that always pans out.
see, like, yeah, that'll be the most interesting thing to me is what happens. You know what I mean? At the quarterback position, and then I could give you a better answer. But yeah, I mean, if they finish with 2 wins, I think it's interesting, right? Like, I think that'll be a more interesting conversation.
I honestly think that they probably end up going after a veteran guy to be the starter and then just draft guys around him, which I don't think is a terrible thought process. I don't know if this roster is good enough to win now, but the issue is your main star on offense, Devontae Adams, is not getting any younger, right? So there is a window with Devontae where honestly I think they might need to move off of him.
I
I
think
don't
they
know
have
what
to too.
I don't know what the return value is, but I will tell you that the return value is not going to get any higher than it is right now, right? Like you're in this situation where you don't really have a window to win, but you also have a very small window with some superstars that you can still get some value back for now. I like the Antonio Pierce hire, and what I really like is Max Crosby being like, "Listen, dog, either this guy's the head coach or you're going to find me somewhere else to play next season."
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people may not be a super huge fan of the move, but for Max Crosby, you've seen them fumble this twice already over now, right? I mean, they had Gruden. They didn't bring back Ray. I can never remember his goddamn last name. The interim guy.
Rich Bisacci.
Rich Versace. Why can I
How?
not remember? That's such a memorable name.
Yeah.
Um, you don't bring back Versace. You bring in McDaniels. You fire him. And now you're sitting here with Antonio Pierce. So good on Max Crosby. Get your guy in as head coach.
I think that's one of those names I always say wrong. It's Basacci, not Versace. I always
It's
think I say it with a
Versace.
V. It's B
Rich
Basacci.
Versace.
I think I do
Yeah.
that a lot, but
So
say,
I like the hire. You have to keep your superstar happy, and it's one of those things where like we've swung and missed at the big head coach hire twice in the last 5 years already. what's it going to hurt to save some money and just bring the guy up from within for once? And if it goes south, cool. At least we're not paying him fucking 75 to $100 million and getting stuck with the bill, because they're still paying for 3 head coaches right now. They're still paying Gruden and McDaniels this year, and they probably will be for at least another 2 for Gruden.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you talked about a free agent quarterback. It's not a plentiful class. It's really
no, it's
not.
not. It's not, but it's the Raiders. Like, let's
Yeah.
let's be realistic with what we are. I don't think it's Russell Wilson. I cannot, for the life of me, seeing Antonio Pierce being like, get that guy in black and silver. I
Yeah.
can't.
So top free agents are Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, Gardner Minshew, Joshua Dobbs. Jake Browning is actually a free agent. Ryan Tannehill, Joe Flacco, Tyrod Taylor.
That class
And
is
then
a lot worse than I thought it was,
and
truthfully.
then a long list of backups: Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, Sam Darnold. So, not necessarily guys that, I mean, most of those guys are backup guys outside of like the top, 3 or 4 of them. So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I think Tannehill maybe could be a fit. Is a weird one, like a bridge guy. Draft a guy in the second round, first round, let him sit a year. You know what I mean? It depends. I think I'd want to see their draft first.
I have a bad feeling that they're just going to hold on to Aiden O'Connell and Jimmy G and be like, we're fine. We're
Yeah.
just going to run with it. I think Tyrod Taylor is a guy that I look at too. Like, always been very serviceable. Literally one of the best bridge quarterbacks of all time. Everybody that follows him, except for the last stop, has been a superstar afterwards. So
Why not his last stop?
I think Daniel Jones was the last guy that replaced him. But you remember you had the Justin Herbert year.
No, he was the backup for Daniel Jones. Eli Manning, Daniel Jones replaced Eli Manning.
Oh yeah,
Eli
you're right.
Manning was on that team
Yeah,
for a year.
You're right. You're right.
So, yeah.
I'm trying to remember who the hell the last stop was, because I remember when they were talking about it, and they were like Herbert, and there's 2 other guys, and then they're like, "Is this
It
the
would have
next
been
one?"
it would have been Baker, Herbert, or it would have been Josh Allen and then Baker, cuz the Bills drafted Josh Allen. Tyrod signed in Cleveland. Baker replaces him midseason, and then the whole Herbert thing happened. I don't
The
know who the
old
other one
punctured
would have been.
lung.
Yeah, I don't know who the other one would have been, but um all right, let's jump into the next coach here. Chargers hired Jim Harbaugh. Uh, I'm going to go on a limb here and say this maybe was the right hire. I know we're not giving out grades or rankings, but this is a win-win here for sure. I don't know how you could possibly view this as a loss. Um, he's bringing his defensive coordinator with him from Michigan that just got announced like 10 minutes ago as we were talking. So that's a really cool get as well. And for a team that's ready to win, they hired the coach that typically wins the fastest, right?
Yeah.
Won a lot in Stanford, turned Michigan around very quickly, and
Turned
I
San
expect
Francisco around.
turned San Francisco around. Yeah,
Alex Smith was not great, and then he got there, and I think they won 12 games in his first year. Second year, Alex Smith goes down in week 3 or 4, and then Colin Kaepernick unleashes hell on everybody for a season and a half. So he's had success very quickly. There is a lot of work to do with this roster, I think, before I really feel like it's ready to go.
it's
But
not that bad, honestly.
it depends on how they maneuver their cap situation, because they're in the hole. They're obviously going to want a little bit to spend going into this year. So it just depends on who they move off of, right? Keenan Allen, Derwin James, Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, all are options. Probably going to have to get rid of 2, if not 3 of those guys.
Mike Williams will probably
Yeah,
be
Mike
on that
Williams is
list.
another one. Yeah, both of their receivers. The issue, again, I've said this before and I'll say it again. You have 3-6-4 receivers that can't get open within 3 seconds, and you don't have an offensive line that can protect Justin Herbert for 3 seconds. So I'm really curious to see what they do with the OC spot. Greg Roman's been rumored. He worked with him when he was in San Fran. Very large run game guy. I could see that succeeding very early on. If they bring in Greg Roman, look for a lot of early success, and then they're going to probably stall out just because Herbert's not that runner type of quarterback. And Greg Roman's offense is very, very good, but after 3 years, it's going to be very easy to know what he's going to do at any given time. So it really depends on the OC hire as well, but this is 100% the right hire, the guy that's going to be here for the rest of Justin Herbert's career. And that's what you wanted. You're coming into this head coaching cycle. I'm like, who's going to be the guy 10 years from now that is, hugging Justin Herbert on the day he retires? That's the guy that I want. And I think Jim Harbaugh is that guy. So I think
Yeah,
this is 100% the right move. Curious to see how the staff fills out, but I have no gripes here at all.
yeah. I think I this is the spot. Like, watch Derrick Henry. If he does become available in the market, watch Derrick Henry just be like a short term lease here.
Yeah.
Uh, Everyone forgets who Jim's running back in San Francisco was. It was Frank Gore. So he likes that tough style, hard hitting football. So I had also the other thing too. I expect Justin Herbert's numbers to go down under Jim Harbaugh. I don't think he'll throw. He might not throw for 5,000 yards for a while. A lot of play action pass, a little bit more traditional. Um, so it'll be interesting. I really think it was a good hire. I think it was the right move. But yeah, I think if they get off two guys that are expensive and hurt a lot, I mean, honestly, I'd just get rid of Joey Bosa and I'd get rid of Derwin James and keep Khalil Mack at this point. Like, I think he's
I'm
he's more available, even though he's older. Like, I'd rather have him. So
I don't know. That's tough. I need one of those two edge rushers to pick it the hell back up. Khalil Mack was like fourth in the league in sacks this year, but he had
still finished
five. I think he had 5 of his 16 in
six.
one game.
He had 6 of his 17, and he still finished in the top 10.
Yeah. Like
So
you
he
take
had
that
six.
one game away, he drops out of the top 10.
Oh, for
So
sure. Yeah. Hey,
I
and
don't know.
that's Joey Bosa is lucky if he plays 10 games. So
Yeah.
it'll
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see. So I don't think that team. Everyone makes a big deal of that. Like, there isn't a lot of, like, if they traded Joey Bosa for a third rounder to some team, I think that's a win. And I
You
think
know
if
where
they do
he's
the same,
going. I honestly I don't know if this will be the exact trade or not, but this is what I truthfully and I don't know if San Fran would do it, but it's possible. I think they're gonna look to try to pair the Bosa brothers together. I think they think that Nick could probably get the best out of Joey down the stretch of the last couple of years of his career.
I don't have the money for it.
Well, I mean, yeah, I would agree with you. It'd probably have to be some type of restructure along the way, but you send Joey for Chase Young and a fourth, whatever it is. Like, I mean,
They
you
can't.
just
Chase Young's a free agent.
get a little sign and trade action. Who cares? Whatever. I
This
don't
is
know.
in
I'm
the
trying to
NBA.
rationalize it in my head, but
I
I
don't. I
do.
don't. I don't think San Francisco's a fit. I mean, that's a big. You would be talking like a guy who's making. I think he makes like 15, 20 million a year,
Well,
uh, and he'd have to take a massive, massive pay cut.
and I think if you're like, hey, we've been to back-to-back NFC title games and have one of the best defenses of all time, and your brother plays here, it lines up to where I'd be like, okay, I'll do that. Like, so I don't know, just kind of a situation to watch. Obviously, when your brother plays somewhere, sometimes you're willing to do some extra things to make it happen. So
$27 million is what Joey Bosa makes.
cut him,
So
cut
yeah,
him. Or go sign at San Fran.
that's more possible.
It is.
All right, next coach, Titans hire Brian Callahan, and this is the hire that's been talked about the least. It's weird, right? Because Brian Callahan, it was the OC for the Cincinnati Bengals. He was Joe Burrow's guy,
Mm-hmm.
and you would think like, oh, hey, we've got a young QB, so we're gonna go get the quarterback, like a QB guy. Who's their young QB? Is it are they planning on Will Levis being that guy? Like, that's the
Maybe.
only thing in my, like, that was the weirdest hire to me, because I was like, you don't have a pick high enough to get anybody. I mean, 7, unless they're planning on making a big move up, right? Like, Chicago wants
Possibly.
out, or somebody thinks like, hey, I don't know how they're gonna get in, like, because I think the first 3 picks are quarterbacks more than likely, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure what their plan is to crack in there. It'd be probably really, the only way that I think they could do it is if Chicago goes, hey, we're going Justin Fields another year, and somebody's got to pay us a king's ransom to get this pick. So
Yeah. They just turn around and trade Traylon Burks and another big package. You just turn AJ Brown, turn the AJ Brown deal around. I don't
yeah,
know. This was one where I was like, wow, thank God we fired Mike Vrabel, right? What a great decision this was. What the hell are we doing? Like, there's just, it was because it was the first move where we went outside of all the names that we had talked about, right? Like Raheem
yeah.
Morris and these guys that came after. Callahan was announced, and I was like, what? All these guys, we talked about 8 to 10 guys, so we're like, this is one of the best head coaching classes we've had in a very long time, if ever. And Tennessee's like, give me the guy that nobody fucking talked about. Give me the guy that like worked with Jake Browning all year. Like, Jake Browning didn't look terrible for part of the, he had some really bad games. Let's not act like Jake Browning came in and he was fucking
Yeah.
Matt Castle, like he was Matt Castle in New England. All right. There were some really, 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 really bad games in there. 10 first downs in a whole game type bad. So I don't know if I like this hire as much. It's really curious to see what Tennessee does with the roster going forward. You know, they've decided that they wanted to keep the GM. Did they fire the GM or
I
did they
don't
keep?
remember.
I couldn't remember. It would make sense if they fired Vrabel and kept the GM, but I think they backed the wrong horse on that one by a million miles. I don't know why you would ever do such a thing.
Yeah, he was hired this year. They cleaned house.
So they fired both when they
They
fired
fired
Vrabel.
both. Yeah, Rand Carthen was hired. He's the 14th general manager. Oh, he was hired on January 18th, 2023. So he was hired last year.
Okay.
So oh no. Wait. He was hired wait, this is so confusing. Yeah, he was hired by the team in January of 2023. He was promoted in 2024. So
Huh. I so here's my question: if you're Tennessee's ownership, Mike Vrabel has this issue with the AJ Brown trade and everything, and you're coming to the head of this issue.
they kept the GM. He's from last year, January of 2023. Sorry. That
So
was so confusing.
if this comes to a head at this point, you're Tennessee's ownership, and I get him being hired recently kind of throws a wrench in this. But if it comes down to Vrabel's like, listen, man, either I have more say in this roster or I'm out of here, would you make him the GM or would you let him walk?
I mean,
I say
I would make him the GM. Like that's what I would
I
do.
feel like we're overthinking this situation. Tennessee's overthinking the situation because I
Yeah,
agree with you wholeheartedly.
it's interesting, and it might have just been time, right? Like it just might have been like, hey, it's not this guy's fault that we traded AJ Brown away. He got hired last year, but it's just not working. I want more input, and you know, they didn't buy it. So it's interesting, but yeah, I think this is a weird move. I really, unless they're planning on stinking next year, and that's just their plan, is like, hey, we'll give Will Levis a shot for a year. If he's no good, we'll draft a guy next year. Like that's the only thing I can see coming out of a move like this.
Yeah, I just yeah, I agree with you. The move doesn't move me at all.
Yeah, this is the one that I would say I was like maybe the least excited for. Oh no, actually, speaking of the least excited, uh, Panthers hired Dan Cannells. Again, we talked about left field. Like at least Brian Callahan was at least on a team where you're like, oh yeah, like that team's had some success, been to a Super Bowl. That's Joe Burrow's guy. Like Dan Cannells, man, had one good year as an OC in Tampa Bay, and now he's the head Panthers head coach. So really interesting move. To me, this is more of David Tepper going, I couldn't control Matt Rule. Matt Rule was too good of a coach. He had other choices, right? Like Matt Rule left, got the Nebraska job right away, and is starting to turn that program around. Frank Wright comes in. Frank Wright's old school, been around the NFL, knows a lot, right? Can't control Frank Wright. So he just gives a guy a shot who probably wasn't ready for his shot and ultimately ended up getting, a guy he can control and say, hey, you're the head coach, but I'm the owner, and this is what we're going to do. So that's how I view this hire.
Yeah, and I think you might be right because it's David F. and Tepper. Let's not sit here and act like this is coming with full football analysis and that he wants the best for his team. He's looking for the
Yeah.
guy that he can 15 games into the year and get away with, and you're not going to do that to Bill Belichick or Ben Johnson or any of these other guys. There is a second train of thought here, and I think it's a very good one, but you run
I have
into
a,
the issue.
I have another train of thought too.
What's that?
This might be the only guy who would take the job, right? Like
Yeah,
nobody
that's the
else might have
third.
taken the job too. So
That is definitely the third train of thought for sure. The other that comes here, but the issue is this isn't guaranteed to line up because as we know, you could be very good at your job and be horrible as a head coach. Josh McDaniels, right? You could be a great QB coach, horrible head coach. All these things can happen. And the thing with Dave Canales that comes to mind is he's part of a decent tree, right? He worked with Pete Carroll um, at USC and at Seattle. Main thing that comes here is when you look at this guy's tree of the quarterbacks that he's worked with, he is kind of a quarterback whisperer, and that I do think is something that the Panthers could benefit from with Bryce Young.
yeah,
when you look at Seattle before he got there, Russell Wilson was not great. He was solid, very serviceable NFL starter. Canales comes in. That's where they kind of took the step forward. I believe he was hired in Seattle in 2010.
Something like that, yeah.
He was a wide receivers coach from 2010 to 2017. So maybe he's not part of the Russell Wilson resurgence that we saw that led them to 2 Super Bowl berths. But nonetheless, Geno Smith played his best football under Dave Canales. Now Baker Mayfield has played his best football under Dave Canales. And I saw another person that did credit him with kind of, Russell Wilson kind of stepping his play up as well. So I think that this also might be a move where like this guy has really good track record with working with really good quarterbacks or like guys that need the jump, right? So this move will also be you'll also see a lot out of this depending on how Baker does this next year, right? If Baker turns back to his old stuff, you're like, oh, okay, David Tepper better hold on to one because he might have actually just done something really, really smart for once in his entire ownership life. But it remains to be seen if that's going to be the case or not.
Yeah, I mean, and Baker was good, but he wasn't like ground earth breaking, right? Like,
No. I mean, he
I
just
just,
went from a guy that was playing scout team defensive line for Carolina a
yeah,
year ago to a playoff starting caliber quarterback, right? I think you drop him in to most teams and he can take that team to the playoffs. If you have a solid roster, I think he takes that team to the playoffs.
yeah. No, it'll be interesting for sure. I think yeah. Um, all right, the Falcons hire Raheem Morris. Raheem Morris was a former coach, and it's actually kind of funny how full circle this has become for Raheem
Yeah.
Morris. He was the interim head coach before they hired Arthur Smith, and now he's back as the head coach full time now.
Yep.
So he was Tampa Bay's head coach a long time ago. I honestly kind of forgot that he was Tampa
Like
Bay's head coach.
2010 or
Yeah,
something
it
like
was a
that.
weird time. Yeah, kind of slipped my mind. And he's getting a lot of praise, and hopefully he's the right guy to turn this Falcons team around because there's a lot of talent, a lot of promise on this team.
There is.
Out of talking the last two, which were kind of bummers, this is one that I really hope for that there's some good turnaround, right? That there's a good feeling that like, hey, this is the right guy for the right job at the right time. Maybe not like the first candidate I would have had for this job, but again, I think he's if he has the most pressure out of any of these undernamed guys, right? Like, I mean, Jim Harbaugh has a lot of pressure. Antonio Pierce has a lot of pressure. Out of the other four guys, he's going to have the most pressure on him because the other guy he was competing against for this job was Bill Belichick, right?
Yep.
So anything short of the playoffs next year for Atlanta, I think will be viewed as a major disappointment.
Yeah, which I think is a tad bit unfair considering that their quarterback situation is unsolved currently. And honestly, I like Raheem Morris. I do like to hire. I hope the best. I think I would have rather leaned towards kind of more an offensive-minded coach. I have Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. I'm going to have a rookie quarterback this year. I would kind of prefer a Ben Johnson type here, a Bieniemy type here. The only reason Belichick was the exception to the rule is because it's Bill fucking Belichick, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
we'll be okay. So curious to see how it pans out, but it has been a well-backed hire by most of the guys that have played for him in his career.
Yeah. So I'm hopeful for him. I feel bad at the same time that he's stepping into such a high pressure job here. All right, let's jump into our playoff predictions here. Boy, I am just not having the playoffs I was hoping I would have, right? Like I thought I was for sure a stud and on top of my game during the playoffs, and I can't call them right now. I really was pulling for the Bills and pulling for the Bucks to come out. So, first matchup we got Ravens versus Chiefs. Who you taking in this?
I wonder who I might take in this game. I'm probably going to lean towards the Baltimore Ravens. I actually got a chance to spin this argument on. I do a sports talk radio show up here in Manhattan, and they actually gave me a little 15-minute segment to go head to head with one of the Chiefs fans that's on the show. truthfully, if there was any other quarterback on the other side of this game that was not Patrick Mahomes, I would tell you with 100% confidence that Baltimore is walking out of here with a win. And that there was a 0% chance for them to lose this game, truthfully. But the issue is, when number 15 in red is on your side, you've always got a decent shot at the game. So, and that's what most people are saying about this game. I mean, Baltimore, no one has talked about it as one of the best defenses of all time. They are the first defense in NFL history to win the Triple Crown, lead the league in sacks, takeaways, and points allowed per game.
I didn't know that.
You
That's
know,
good to
that
know.
I mean, that's a thing that the 85 Bears couldn't do, the 2000 Ravens couldn't do, the People Eaters of the Minnesota Vikings couldn't do. So it's been statistically a very historical defense, and it's going to be a very tough test for Kansas City. Um, this game goes two ways. Either it's well, I guess technically it'd be three. It's a close game, and it could go either way, right? Baltimore won the last matchup in a very close game, the infamous 4th and 3 call that they were able to convert and chew the clock out. Um, they had lost the previous two matchups to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. I will tell you this, and I did get some reassurance on this because one of the other guys on the show that's unbiased, he's a Cowboys fan, said this as well. Because I did have some people throw me some sideways looks. If this game is a blowout, it goes one way, and it goes to Baltimore.
I
There's a
agree.
0 chance in hell that Baltimore loses this game by 2 touchdowns. I can see a future where Kansas City does lose this game by 2 touchdowns. Now, if we're coming back next week and I'm extremely depressed, it's probably because we got blown out by some miracle of God, and I will
Yeah.
cry myself to sleep on Sunday night. But
You kind of made my argument for the Chiefs for me. I'm picking the Chiefs in this game. Not only to be different, but I'm just done betting against Patrick Mahomes at this point.
I don't blame you at all.
Like I just if it's a one score game and it comes down to the last drive of the game, he's the quarterback that I want right now, right? Like the only guy he loses to apparently is Tom Brady in the playoffs.
Yep.
And he's not playing Tom Brady anymore because Tom Brady's retired. So
Yep.
until I see the formula to beat Mahomes, I don't know if I can constantly tell myself, like, because we said last year, oh, this is the weakest the Chiefs team's going to be. And then this year, this
We said
team's
it again.
worse than last year's team. Like the
Yep.
defense is better, but the offense is worse. So it's like, if he's able to drag this team to the AFC Championship game, I don't know what to think anymore. I truly don't know what to think.
And I've said this for almost 3 years now, that somehow in the short amount of time, and 2 3 years ago it would have been obviously like 3 years time, now 6 years time, he has earned this Tom Brady, Bill Belichick level of respect where
Yeah,
unless it's a 2 score game with under 30 seconds left, there's always a shot, right?
he's got a chance.
And
Yeah,
it's one of those things where it doesn't matter where the cards are stacked. You never want to bet against the guy. But I truthfully think the Baltimore's defense is going to be the key in this game. So I'm really curious to see how this one shakes out. It's going to be a dogfight. I do know that. It should be easily the best game this weekend, and I think it'll be the best game of the postseason so far. Um, but there was another point I was going to make, and I lost it. God damn it.
yeah. I don't think this game, if it is a blowout, it definitely goes to Baltimore. I do think ultimately the game ends up being closer than a lot of people think it'll be. I mean, Vegas has the line set pretty tight, and I think it'll continue to be
It's
pretty
gotten
tight.
closer. It was at 4, and now it's down to 3.5.
3.5, yeah. I do think it comes down to a last drive play, um, and that'll be interesting, right? Like I think this is we've wanted to see what Lamar's made of, right? Lamar's had the best passing year that he's ever had, and I think that's underrated. That's not talked about enough how good Lamar has been passing the ball this year.
Yeah. I mean, I could tack in with you. Go
Yeah, go
ahead.
ahead. No, I was that I stopped to because you looked like you were ready. You did
Yeah.
one of those, which is like I'm ready to talk.
I'm
So
going to
go ahead.
fire. Yeah, because
Yeah,
you're right. He has had the best passing year of his career. He's been statistically the best quarterback against 4-man rushes this year. He is the number one QBR against a 4-man rush this year. And also, even when that 4-man rush gets pressure, his passer rating goes up. So you can still rush 4, and if you get a stunt off and you get pressure on, he's better under that pressure. So if your game plan is to sit back and make Lamar Jackson throw the football, have fun in Cabo next week because it's not going to go well for you. Teams have been saying that all year. There's been some NFL analysts and some former coaches or whatever that have been like, that he's played great, that have given him his due credit and his props, and I can appreciate that. But every team, because Houston said it last week, And now apparently I've heard rumors that KC's been saying it this week that their game plan was to make Lamar Jackson throw the football. And there's been a lot of analysts who are like, oh, whoa, they do so much with the quarterback run game and this, that, and the other. You've got to make him throw. He's not a great pocket passer. I would go out on a limb and say that he is one of the best pocket passers in the NFL right now. The last 10 weeks of the season, he's been unstoppable from the pocket because, again, teams want to sit back and rush four and play coverage all day. This is the NFL. If you want to sit back and rush, it's the NFL. Guys can sit back there and dice you up all day long if there's no pressure on him. So he's going to sit back and he's going to do his thing. I'm looking forward to this game. And if the game plan is to sit back and make him throw, have fun. And I don't know what game tape everyone's watching. They do so many things. The run, so much quarterback design run play. The read option game is so. He ran for 100 yards against Houston, 100 yards on the dot. You know where that ranks on his rushing yards per in a single game this year? 2. He had 100. He had 103 yards in week 3. That's it. There's only 200-yard rushing games. So if you're expecting to watch us run 10 read options, 15 read options this weekend, you're wrong. You're going to see 2 to 3 at most likely, unless the game breaks down and we need to pull it out of the bag. Obviously, it's always going to be an option with Lamar Jackson, but that's not how our offense runs anymore.
The thing that scares me, I think, the most for the Chiefs is if you get down by more than 10 points in this game, Baltimore has the ability to chew the clock, right? If they want to, they can turn that back on and just chew, run, and eat away at the clock and diminish the opportunity that Mahomes is going to have. So that would be the only thing is if Baltimore jumps out 14-0 early in the game, it's going to be a concern for Kansas City.
Honestly, that concerns me more because I think we might get a little too conservative in that point, and you cannot be conservative against Patrick Mahomes. The last point I want to make, the big thing for the Buffalo KC game, Kansas City had 8 plays of 20 yards or more. Buffalo had none, right? Buffalo had the time of possession. They were chunking first downs. They were just getting first down upon first down. I think they outgained Kansas City by 10 or 12 first downs. KC was just chunking them over the top. Guess what Baltimore does really well? Time of possession, crunching first downs, right? They can hit the big plays, but they are much better when they can go run, play action, and with some consistency, get it going. Guess who's also the best defense against 20-plus yard plays this year? The Baltimore Ravens are. So I don't know. There's a lot of things that are going to come to a head in this game. And again, literally anyone but Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes on the other side of that field from Baltimore, I think this is a cakewalk game. But unfortunately, one of those two guys is suiting up on Sunday.
I think you left a guy out of that category. It'd be Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, and Joe Flacco would be the only other guy I would put in the list.
Yeah, week 14 to 18, Joe Flacco.
You give me that Joe Flacco, I'm nervous. But I don't know. I think this is a good game. This is probably a better game in my opinion than the Lions and 49ers. I think this game is going to be very, very close. So it's kind of a bummer it's the early game, but, what are you going to do? I guess West Coast people in their time, whatever.
Hey, Pac-12 football was played at 11 p.m. It's all history, all right? I'll take an 11 p.m. football game. I'm okay with it.
That would be awful.
It would be awful for us trying to get to work on Monday, but, it's better when it's on a Saturday.
It is. All right, let's talk 49ers Lions here. First thing I want to say is if you've watched ESPN at all, I'm just not buying all of this talk that, Deebo Samuel matters for the 49ers, but there's still a slight talent gap here. A lot of the comparisons to the Lions and the 49ers has been fair, right? Lions GM is a former lurked in the player personnel department for the Rams. A lot of people thought he would try to build a Rams-esque team. He did the opposite. He built a 49ers-esque team, right? A running back that can catch out of the backfield, a top 20 wide receiver on this, an accurate and consistent quarterback in Jared Goff, massive pass rushers, and great left tackle, right? He literally, this is a mere matchup in a lot of ways of talent. The difference is how far along those teams are, right? Christian McCaffrey is the best running back that can catch out of the backfield, not one of Jahmyr Gibbs is good, maybe great, you know what I mean? It's his rookie year, we'll see. Christian McCaffrey is the best.
He's the blue. There's a lot of guys on Detroit where like, man, I really like what this guy does, and
Yeah.
I really like this style of player. The issue is the blueprint for that type of player is on the San Francisco 49ers playing at the peak level as one of the best players in this position.
Yeah. And then San Francisco's defense, again, they tried to draft Jack Campbell to be that Fred Warner middle of the field captain. Fred Warner is that guy. Aiden Hutchinson is a great pass rusher, but Nick Bosa is still better, right? Like
Penny Sewell, Trent Williams. You could go on and on.
On
Honestly,
and on, right.
The more we sit here and talk about it, the more I'm like, holy shit, there actually is a lot more here than I thought about.
Right? Like like Brandon Ayuk and Amon St. Brown, right? Like, I mean, that one's the closest matchup out of them all. Like, I'd probably take Amon over Brandon Ayuk right now, but like,
I would.
It's close. It's a conversation, But then you have Debo is like, well, I mean, Debo's not playing in this game, but you get the point. Is like there is a talent disparity here going into this game. So I don't know if I'm buying all of this hype that like the Lions can win this game. It'd be an awesome story. Like I would love nothing more to have a Lions Ravens Super Bowl just to be different. Because to not have the Chiefs or 49ers there, I'd be very happy about that outcome for sure. But I think we're overreacting a little bit too much to Deebo Samuel not playing in this game. That's ultimately why I'm going to take the 49ers. I think it's a close game, but I think the 49ers win.
I don't know. I don't know if this one's going to be close, truthfully. I love Detroit. I want them to win, right? We have a mutual friend at my place of employment that's a Lions fan. I'd love for it to happen. I think it'd be one of the best stories. I will tell you, if it's Chiefs Lions in the Super Bowl, I might cry I'm going to be depressed, truthfully. They're like, what if the year starts off or ends the way it started off? Shoot me in the head.
That's crazy, actually.
I would cry. And the other thing, not that like it's one of the things where again, right? Like you have Gibbs and McCaffrey, you have Sewell and Williams, you have Laporta and Kittle, you have all these guys, right? And you said Hutchinson and Bosa, Campbell, Warner. The Niners have the blueprint and they have the guys playing at the top level. The only thing that makes me nervous in this game, it's not Deebo Samuel, truthfully. It's Brock Purdy in his hand, right? He's trying to throw with the glove a week or two ago. He's still had some soreness in that hand. And there's only been one quarterback I've ever seen that's really been able to play without a thumb, and that was somehow Jacoby Brissett did it for a week and a half for you guys during Tom Brady's 4-game suspension. Other than that,
Jimmy Garoppolo's a quitter, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's been like almost 10 years at that point. Still a true statement. There's a reason that Aiden O'Connell came in and took the job from him last year is because he bruised his pinky toe and cannot deal with any level of discomfort. Anyways, that's also why he's not in Sanford anymore. Anyways, the issue that I have is when you can't grip the football with all the strength in the world, it's hard to be that accurate timing field general quarterback because if the ball's coming out slower and you're on a two-step in or out route and the ball comes in slow, you give every chance in the world for one of those defenders to come over and make that play at that point. So that's the only thing that really worries me on the San Francisco side. But at the end of the day, I just think even if this San Francisco's defense should have a pretty damn good game against Detroit's offense, but if it turns into a shootout, I know who I'm going to go with, right?
And we talked about the talent disparity. I think we kind of missed some key points there, right? Like I'd take San Francisco's defense over Detroit's defense. I would take Kyle Shanahan over Dan Campbell. And I love Dan Campbell, but I'd still take Kyle Shanahan over him 10 days out of the week.
Yep.
Jared Goff and Brock Purdy, it's an interesting conversation, right? Like Jared Goff can rise in moments and he can also fall, right? Like we've seen both sides of that coin with him.
True.
Whereas Purdy, we've never really seen him fall. We've only seen him rise. So it's tough to say what he'll do in this game, but ultimately I think because he's hurt, that's what makes it a close game.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
But both of us are taking the 49ers. All right, let's jump into our bets of the week here. If you or anyone you know is struggling with a gambling problem, contact the Problem Gambling Helpline at 800-522-4777. Oh, whoa, hang on. 800-522-4700. Professionals are available 24 hours a day to take your call. Help is available at no cost to the problem gambler or their concerned others. boy, was that another rough week for me last week. Went 1-2. I had the Bucks plus 6.5 versus the Lions. They weren't even able to cover that. I kind of thought they were going to win. That's
Yeah.
why I took the points there, but couldn't even get that done. I was rather disappointed of how their season ended. Chiefs versus Bills, the over at 45.5. That did hit. I had a good suspicion that game was going to be a little bit back and forth. And then Bills minus 2.5 versus the Chiefs. Obviously, that didn't work out. You can say what you want about that kicker missing that field goal. Tyler Bass did all he could. And boy, does history repeat itself. I feel so bad for Buffalo. If it felt like there was a shot, this was the shot, and it just slips through their fingers again.
Yeah. Back-to-back years were like, oh, this is the weakest the Chiefs are ever going to be in both years. They just couldn't get
Yeah.
it all the way to the Super Bowl. So for me, I had Baltimore and Houston over 43.5. Man, I was sweating at halftime. I tell you what, it's tied 10-10 at halftime. Baltimore comes out, open it up in the second half to get that over to hit for me. San Francisco and Green Bay over 50.5. I thought we were going to see a bit better of a game out of Jordan Love. He didn't put the pressure on Brock Purdy in the offense to score more on the other side. That one will fall short for me. And I had KC plus 2.5 versus Buffalo going head to head with you. Scraped it, barely scraped it. If I bet that at 3, it's a push, and that's another tie
Push.
for me.
Yeah.
2.5 is still the best line in betting history ever. Always will
It
be, in my
is.
opinion.
It is. It's just the field goal is like the safest number out there. Anything
Yep.
more than that, you're just like, oh man, you never know.
Yep.
But yeah, the three, it's a push. But
Yeah.
all right, only 2 bets for this week, just because obviously there's 2 games. We'll probably try to do 3 for the Super Bowl. Maybe throw in a player, like 2 real bets and then like a player prop
prop.
there. Just to have some fun there. I hate betting player props. If I'm being honest with you, it's not my favorite thing to do. It's just so random when
I
it
hate
comes to that.
touchdowns. I hate touchdown score parlays. I always will.
It's the
Guys like,
worst.
I got an 8-legger anytime touchdown parlay. Hate it.
And
I'm sorry, you cannot predict that accurately.
and the only time the guys hit, it's always like, I guess 6 first touchdown scores in the game, and it turned like a dollar bet into like $1,500. You're like, luckiest thing that's ever going to happen to you, buddy.
Yeah,
Like,
cool, brother. You better deposit every single dollar of it because it's never going to
yeah,
happen again.
you
Yeah.
you just peaked in life. Get out while you can,
Yep.
because it's all downhill.
100%.
I've got the Chiefs versus Ravens over 44.5. This line feels a little low to me, like suspectly low.
I agree.
I think this game easily could be like a 31-28 type of game. So I like the over in this. I don't know if there's supposed to be bad weather in Baltimore. I know it was cold last week, but I can't expect that to repeat. And then for my final bet, I got Lions plus 7.5 versus the 49ers. Like we said, I think there's a talent disparity, but I think the Lions are going to play really, really hard and keep this game close at the very least. You know, a touchdown is so much to give in an NFC championship game like this, right?
True.
Like it feels too much. I'm more betting the number than I am the game.
Yeah, so I love your pick of the over in the Chiefs Ravens game. You're essentially asking them just to have the exact same score as KC Buffalo last week. That line is actually a point lower than what that KC Buffalo one was last week, and I think you're sitting on it pretty well. I don't want to share a pick with you since we're only doing 2, but I do think that that's probably the pick of the week at over 44.5. I'm going to do San Francisco and Detroit over 51.5. Again, I'm going the other direction as you, right? You think this is going to be a close game, which benefits the over most of the time, right? Because I don't think the Detroit defense is going to sit here and staunt San Francisco to 21 on one side of it. So if it's going to be close, it's going to be high scoring, then give me the over. I'm going the other way. I'm going to go head to head with you again. I have San Francisco minus 7.5 versus Detroit. If you can get it at 6.5, run it. Run the alternate line. I don't care what the odds difference is. Shave yourself that extra point so if they win by a touchdown instead of 8 points, it's not as big of a deal.
Better. Yeah.
But I think San Fran's going to end up running away with this one. I think you're going to see shades of what happened with Detroit and Tampa last week, right? Real close game, maybe. Maybe it is, a very close game, just that touchdown or maybe 3 points. San Francisco is going to score late to kind of be the dagger, put them up 10-14 in the last, 4 or 5 minutes. I see that's how this one's going to go. And also, even if not, I think San Fran just gets up and down the field. I think they own 35 of this 51 of the over by themselves if possible. So, um, I will be 100% honest with you. I'm not trying to jinx myself. I think Baltimore minus 2.5, 3.5, 4 is a good bet for Kansas City. I have a lot of faith in my team. I'm not gonna be. It's not an official bet, not an official pick. I refuse to bring that bad juju on myself in the biggest game of the year for Baltimore and Lamar Jackson. But I this is probably the most confident I felt in the Ravens team in my entire lifetime. Truthfully.
I can't tell you how bad I wanted you to stop from jinxing yourself and stopping the episode before you could say it and get it on
Yeah,
film,
you think
because
that just putting it on tape, even if it's not an official bet,
I
is
think
bad
yeah,
enough?
it's still like throwing it out there. Like you might as well have just bet it at that point, then like just say it like that. It's the same. It's the
Fair.
same thing.
It's the same
You
thing to
know?
you.
Yeah. If you jump in the pool or stick your toe in the pool, you're still wet. You know what I'm saying? It's just it's
Fair.
all the
Fair
same to
enough.
me in that aspect. But
Fair enough.
all right, if you've made it this far, we greatly appreciate it. This week's episode was definitely a struggle on multiple of just getting it together, getting through it. But if you made it this far, we greatly appreciate it. Another episode coming out next week. If you got some stuff you want us to talk about, send it our way. Right, a lot of flexibility of what we could talk about next week's episode because of no game happening that weekend. We got the Pro Bowl, which we probably won't spend a lot of time talking about because I hate the Pro Bowl.
I
But
think the only thing we'll talk about is how to fucking fix it for the third straight year.
no, I don't want to even talk about that anymore because they're not even going to listen about it. So I just
No, you're
hate the
not
Pro
wrong.
Bowl.
Not wrong at all.
So, but uh, thanks for listening along. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.